Flavius Aetius, Flavius Dux Patricius, commonly called simply Aetius or Aetius, was a Roman general of the closing period of the Western Roman Empire. He was an able military commander and the most influential man in the Western Roman Empire for 2 decades. He managed policy in regard to the attacks of barbarian federates settled throughout the Western Roman Empire. Notably, he mustered a large Roman and allied army to stop the Huns in the Battle of the Catalonian Plains, ending the devastating Hunnic invasion of Attila in 451. Along with his rival Count Boniface, he has often been called the last of the Romans. Edward Gibbon refers to him as the man universally celebrated as the terror of barbarians and the support of the Republic for his victory at the Catalonian Plains. Biography. Origins and family. Aetius was born at Durostorum in Moesia Inferior, around 391. His father, Flavius Gaudentius, was a Roman general of Scythian origin, as the term Scythian was frequently used in late antiquity for East Germanic tribes. Joseph Cummins notes that Gaudentius was possibly of Gothic origin. Aetius' mother, whose name is unknown, was a wealthy aristocratic woman of Italian ancestry. Before 425, Aetius married the daughter of Carpalio, who gave him a son, also named Carpalio. Later he married Pelagia, widow of Bonifacius, from whom he had a son, Gaudentius. It is possible that he had also a daughter, wife of Thraustola, who avenged Aetius' death by killing Emperor Valentinian III. Early years and service. Under Joannes as a boy, Aetius was at the service of the imperial court, enrolled in the military unit of the Praetores Domestici and then elevated to the position of Tribuni Praetoriani Partis Militaris, setting him up for future political eligibility. Between 405 and 408 he was kept as hostage at the court of Alaric I, king of the Visigoths. In 408 Alaric asked to keep Aetius as a hostage, but was refused, as Aetius was sent to the court of Uldine, king of the Huns, where he would stay with the Huns throughout much of the reign of Tataryn, Uldine's successor. Aetius's upbringing amongst militaristic peoples gave him a martial vigor not common in Roman generals of the time. In 423 the Western Emperor Honorius died. The most influential man in the West, Castinus, chose as his successor Joannes, a high-ranking officer. Joannes was not part of the Theodosian dynasty and he did not receive the recognition of the Eastern court. The Eastern Emperor Theodosius II organized a military expedition westward, led by Ardaburius and his son Aspar, to put his cousin, the young Valentinian III, on the Western throne. Aetius entered the service of the usurper as Cura Palatii and was sent by Joannes to ask the Huns for assistance. Joannes lacked a strong army and fortified himself in his capital, Ravenna, where he was killed in the summer of 425. Shortly afterwards, Aetius returned to Italy with a large force of Huns to find that power in the west was now in the hands of Valentinian III and his mother Galla Placidia. After fighting against Aspar's army, Aetius managed to compromise with Galla Placidia. He sent back his army of Huns and in return obtained the rank of Cumsae Magister Militium for Gallius, the commander-in-chief of the Roman army in Gaul. First Gallic campaigns. In 426, Aetius arrived in southern Gaul and took command of the field army. At that time Arelate, an important city in Narbonensis near the mouth of the Rhone, was under siege from the Visigoths, led by their king Theodoric I. Aetius defeated Theodoric, lifted the siege of Arelate, and drove the Visigoths back to their holdings in Aquitania. In 428 he fought the Salian Franks, defeating their king Claudio and recovering some territory they had occupied along the Rhine. In 429 he was elevated to the rank of Magister Militium. This was probably the junior of the two officers of Cumsae Magister Utriusque Militiae, as the senior is known to have been the patricius Flavius Constantinus Felix, the most influential man in those years. and a supporter of Galla Placidia. In 430 the Visigoths led by Anorolsis attacked Arelate again but were defeated by Aetius. In May 430, Aetius and the army accused Felix of plotting against him and had him, his wife, and a deacon killed. Once Felix was dead, Aetius was the highest ranking amongst the Magister Militiae, even if he had not yet been granted the title of patricius or the senior command. During late 430s and 431 Aetius was in Rhaetia and Noricum, defeating the Bacordii in Augusta Vendelicorum, re-establishing Roman rule on the Danube frontier, and campaigning against the Juthungi. In 431 he returned to Gaul, where he received Hydatius, bishop of Aquiflavia, who complained about the attacks of the Suebi. Aetius then defeated the Franks, recapturing Tournicum and Cambriacum. He then sent back Hydatius to the Suebi in Hispania. War with Bonifacius. While Aetius was campaigning in Gaul, there was an ongoing power struggle between Aetius, Felix, Bonifacius, and the Emperor Valentinian's mother and regent Galla Placidia. After the execution of Felix, Aetius and Bonifacius remained as the empire's most influential generals, both constantly vying for the favor of Placidia. In 427, while Bonifacius was away as governor of Africa, Felix caused him to fall into disfavor with Placidia. Bonifacius was eventually returned to favor by Placidia, but only after Felix had sent Sigismund and 2 other armies against him when Aetius warned him of Felix's intentions. In 429, the Vandals exploited this power struggle and crossed over to Africa. In 432 Aetius held the consulate, but Bonifacius was recalled to Italy and received warmly by Placidia. Bonifacius was given the rank of patrician, and made the senior comes a magister utriusque militiae, while Aetius was stripped of his military command. Aetius, believing his fall now imminent, marched against Bonifacius and fought to him at the Battle of Rimini. Boniface won the battle but was mortally wounded, dying a few months later. Aetius escaped to Pannonia and travelled to the court of his friend, Rua, the king of the Huns. With their help he returned to power, receiving the title of comes a magister utriusque militiae. Aetius then had Bonifacius a son-in-law, Sebastianus, who had succeeded Bonifacius as magister militium, exiled from Italy to Constantinople, bought the properties of Bonifacius, and married his widow Pelagia. Campaigns against Burgundians, Bacordii, and Visigoths. From 433 to 450, Aetius was the dominant personality in the Western Empire, obtaining the rank of Magnificus Verparens Patrius Noster and playing the role of protector of Galla Placidia and Valentinian III while the emperor was still young. At the same time he continued to devote attention to Gaul. In 436, the Burgundians of King Gundikar were defeated and obliged to accept peace by Aetius and Avitus. However, the following year he sent the Huns to destroy them. Allegedly 20,000 Burgundians were killed in a slaughter which probably became the basis of the Nibelungenlied, a German epic. That same year Aetius was probably in Armorica with Litorius to suppress a rebellion of the Bacordii. Year 437 saw his second consulship and the wedding of Valentinian and Licinia Eudoxia in Constantinople. It is probable that Aetius attended at the ceremony that marked the beginning of the direct rule of the emperor. At that time his general Litorius had broken the siege of Narbona and had turned the war in favor of the Romans. The following 2 years were occupied by a campaign against the Suebi and by the war against the Visigoths. In 438 Aetius won a major battle, but in 439 the Visigoths defeated and killed his general Litorius and his Hunnic Foederati. Aetius returned to Gaul after Vetaricus had stabilized the situation, and defeated the Visigoths and obtained a treaty. On his return to Italy, he was honored by a statue erected by the Seno and the people of Rome by order of the emperor. This was probably the occasion for the panegyric, written by Merobodus. In 443, Aetius settled the remaining Burgundians in Sarpaudia, south of Lake Geneva. His most pressing concern in the 440s was with problems in Gaul and Iberia, mainly with the Bacordii. He settled Alans around Valence in 440, and Aurelianum in 442 to contain unrest in Armorica. In Spain, Aetius was slowly losing his grip on the situation. In 441 he appointed Asturias Magister Militium per Hispanias, in order to put down the Bacordii in Tarraconensis. He was recalled and Merobodus defeated the Bacordii of Aracelitanus in 443. In 445 the Romans had the Vandals attack Turonium in Galaretia, followed by Bitus, who campaigned with a combined force of Romans and Goths in 446. But was ultimately defeated. In 445 Majoran defeated a Frankish siege of Turonum, followed by a Frankish attack under Claudio in the region of Attribution, in Belgica Secunda. The Foederati were stopped in an ambush near Vicus Helena, where Aetius directed the operations while his commander Majoran fought with the cavalry. However, in 450 Aetius had already returned to good terms with the Franks. In that year, in fact, Claudio died, and the patricius supported his younger son Merovius's claim to the throne. Aetius adopted him as his own son and sent him from Rome, where he had been an ambassador, to the Frankish court with many presents. The Bacordii in Armorica revolted again in 447 or 448, and were put down by the Alans of Goa. As a result, the leader of the revolt Eudoxius fled to the court of Attila the Hun. In 449 the Bacordii in Spain revolted and sacked Hyrcanus, Iladensis. The Suebi also entered Tarraconensis to assist the Basilius in his revolt. Victory over Attila at the Catalonian plains. Before 449 Aetius had signed an agreement with the Huns, allowing some of them to settle in Pannonia, along the Sava River. He also sent to Attila, the king of the Huns, a man called Constantius as a secretary. In 449, Attila was angry for an alleged theft of a golden plate, and Aetius sent him an embassy under Romulus to calm him. Aetius sent him as a present a dwarf, Zirco, whom Aetius gave back to his original owner, Aspar. However, the good terms between Romans and Huns did not last. As Attila wanted to attack Gaul, he knew that Aetius was a serious obstacle to his enterprise, and tried to have him removed, but in 451, when the Huns attacked, Aetius was still the commander of the Roman army in Gaul. The large Hunno-German army captured several cities, and proceeded towards Aurelianum. Aetius, with the help of the influential Gallo-Roman senator Avitus, convinced the Visigoths of King Theodoric I to join him against the external menace. He also succeeded in persuading Sambidae, the Armoricans, the Salian Franks, some of the Saxons, and the Burgundians of Sarpaudia to join his forces. Then the joint Roman and Visigothic army moved to relieve the besieged city of Aurelianum, forcing the Huns to abandon the siege and retreat to open country. On June 20, 451, Aetius and Theodoric defeated Attila and his allies at the Battle of the Catalonian Plains. Theodoric died in the battle, and Aetius suggested his son Thorismund retreat to Tolosa to secure his throne, as well as persuading Merovius to return to the lands of the Franks. For this reason it is said that Aetius kept all of the booty for his army. Attila returned in 452 to again press his claim of marriage to Honoria. Aetius was unable to block Attila's advance through the Julian Alps, and Attila invaded and ravaged Italy, sacking numerous cities and razing Aquileia completely, leaving no trace of it behind. Valentinian III fled from Ravenna to Rome. Aetius remained in the field but lacked the strength to offer battle. Gibbon, however, says Aetius never showed his greatness more clearly in managing to harass and slow Attila's advance with only a shadow force. Attila finally halted at the Po, where he met an embassy including the prefect Trigetius, the ex-consul Gennadius Avienus, and Pope Leo I. After the meeting he turned his army back, having gained neither Honorius' hand nor the territories he desired. Ancient and medieval historians tended to give Pope Leo and supernatural forces credit for halting Attila, but a number of practical factors may have also induced Attila to retreat. His army was unable to obtain sufficient food and was suffering from disease. Aetius' army, busy harassing the Huns, had been reinforced by troops sent from the Eastern Empire by the Emperor Marcian, and, finally, Marcian had sent forces north of the Danube to attack the homelands of the Huns under a separate Aetius assassination. Although in 453 Aetius had been able to betroth his son Gaudentius to Valentinian's daughter Placidia, Valentinian felt intimidated by Aetius, who had once supported Joannes against him and who, Valentinian believed, wanted to place his son upon the imperial throne. The Roman senator Petronius Maximus and the chamberlain Heraclius were therefore able to enlist Valentinian in a plot to assassinate Aetius. The ancient historian Priscus of Panium reports that on September 21, 454, while Aetius was at court in Ravenna delivering a financial account, Valentinian suddenly leaped from his seat and declared that he would no longer be the victim of Aetius's drunken depravities. He held Aetius responsible for the empire's troubles and accused him of trying to steal the empire from him. When Aetius attempted to defend himself from the charges, Valentinian drew his sword and, together with Heraclius, struck Aetius on the head, killing him. Later, when Valentinian boasted that he had done well in disposing of Aetius, someone at court responded, "Whether well or not, I do not know, but know that you have cut off your right hand with your left." Edward Gibbon credits Sidonius Apollinaris with this famous observation. Maximus expected to be made patrician in place of Aetius, but was blocked by Heraclius. Seeking revenge, Maximus arranged with two Hun friends of Aetius, Optila and Throstila, to assassinate both Valentinian III and Heraclius. On March 16, 455, Optila stabbed the emperor in the temple as he dismounted in the Campus Martius and prepared for a session of archery practice. As the stunned emperor turned to see who had struck him, Optila finished him off with another thrust of his blade. Meanwhile, Throstila stepped forward and killed Heraclius. Most of the soldiers standing close by had been faithful followers of Aetius, and none lifted a hand to save the emperor.